Regular best ball season is over. If you're like me, you didn't win $1 million. Have no fear. We got another shot. Playoff best ball on DraftKings. It's a $3 million prize pool with $1 million to first place. The craziest playoff best ball tournament ever in the history of playoff best ball. I keep saying playoff best ball a lot. But that's what we're going to do today. We're going to draft some DK teams to try to win at least our share of $1 million, get into some of our strategies, favorite players, rankings, all that different stuff here on Spike Week. Let's get to it. Let's go ship $1 million. Amen. Bernie says, let's win $1 million. Love stars. Shout out. Happy New Year as well to you. Hope everybody, hopefully you're off work, getting to draft some playoff best ball teams or enjoy the football games. Probably RIP to our Miami fans a little bit later. We got all day hoops. We got all day football. We got what a great, wonderful sporting day. I'm heading out to a basketball game today. We're going to enjoy that. We're going to get back. We're going to watch the football game. But first, we got to draft some playoff best ball teams super quickly before we get into it. I apologize. This will be the last time I mention this housekeeping, but today is the very last day, December 31st, when the calendar flips over to 2020 to 2026. We'll no longer be having this promotion, but by midnight tonight, if you sign up for Spike Week Premium, the annual version, regular $200, so 365 days, access to absolutely everything that we offer, right? The draft hacker that you'll see today, draft IQ that you'll probably see today that can slice and dice and show you absolutely everything about your portfolio, all sports, all sites, drafters, which we'll do some drafters drafts next week, DK, underdog, absolutely everything is covered. We got rankings, we got baseball stuff coming out. We did the college football playoff best ball. We'll cover March Madness, golf, absolutely everything is covered here at Spike Week, at least with rankings and such, and access to the Discord comes free with your premium subscription. It's 40% off of the annual sub. Yeah, all day NHL too. Thank you, Melch. And we're gonna try to cover some NHL this next season and for the playoffs, since I won't be rooting for my Blues. But 40% off of Spike Week annual. If you use code, it's in the description. Playoffs 25. That ends tonight at midnight, and then we'll get back to regular pricing. But anyway, thank you for suffering through that. We're gonna talk some DK, hop into a draft pretty much right away, and we'll dabble in my portfolio. I am 30 drafts deep into the Millie Maker, and I've maxed the $3 that they have. Let me just go ahead and share my screen super quick, and we can take a look. I actually don't even know if it's going to show up for me on here, but if we go to NFL and we go to playoff best ball, yeah, it does. So they have this $3 20 max, which is super fun. So I have officially maxed that already. Got my 20 entries into there. That's of course not what we're doing today. But if you don't want to dabble into the Millie, there is still a nice, cool $150,000, $300,000 with $30,000 to first place in the $3. They will, I assume, continue to keep launching these $5 5 maxes. This is the second one. So I've done both of those. We're gonna hit this single entry, maybe a little in the 52, maybe a couple into the Wildcat next week. We'll see if there's time. Gotta do Olive Garden and Home Depot and all those fun things. We'll see if we can get to the 33. But of course today, we're drafting in this Millie here. Let's just go ahead and do a draft, and we can talk while we draft. You'll see my exposures and everything. I just updated them before the show, of course, using the draft hacker, which you will see as part of Spike Week subscription, etc. A great question. How many people are going to chop this Millie? This is one of the more fun things I think about playoff best ball, is that even more so, quite honestly, even more so than your regular season best ball, which of course has tons of fun strategies and all the different kind of stuff. So long as you build a team that can theoretically win in the Super Bowl, you probably didn't build a bad team. Now, there's like a million levels of nuance to this, right? And part of that is, are you building a team that's like going to be super duper chalk and and chop a million ways, which instantly kills so much of your expected value, right? The more duplicates you have of your team. So there's a bunch of different things we can do, especially on DraftKings. We have to fill out a full roster that has a tight end position. We have to play 6 players instead of, say, on Underdog where there's 5. It gives us a lot more outs to figure out ways to not chop, right? Whether that be adding on additional players at the end to give ourselves more than 6 players in the Super Bowl, but that's also not a requirement, right? You can have an unlikely Super Bowl matchup, right? Something that our opponents are not necessarily drafting for very much. Part of the beauty of the Spike Week tools is you can see the Super Bowls and the pairings of players that your opponents have drafted, right? So you send your lineups over to Draft IQ and the Draft Hacker, and within Draft IQ, you can see what Super Bowls you're planning for, right? So not just individual player exposure, not even just combinatorial exposure, but like what Super Bowls do you have covered and what combinations and what your opponents are doing as well. So you can get some unique, right? Like anything with like Seattle, Denver, Chicago, right? Baltimore now. Some of these teams that are not super popular are not necessarily going to be like unowned, but there's ways to build them differently so that you can instantly create basically a unique finals team in every single draft. The flip side of that is also knowing the fact that we don't know what is going to be like needed to advance each one of these rounds. On DraftKings in this tournament, only 1 out of 6 advance, right? So if we go to the contest details, right? One out of our first 6 advance. 1 out of our first 6 in the second round advance. Guess what? As I'm sure you could guess in the third round, 1 out of 6 advance again there. And even then you get to the final and there's 816 teams. And so there's a lot of certainly pod variance and everything that plays into playoff best ball, but specifically in this 1 out of 6 format. But also, like, if you recall, we've had, last year, Lad McConkey goes absolutely nuclear in the first round, but his team loses. We had the same thing with Jake Ferguson. Sometimes you'll get, the Commanders last year, where there's a fairly easily attainable team that ends up like making a run. And then they don't even make the Super Bowl, but they were sort of mandatory to get you to the Super Bowl. Sometimes none of that happens. And it's like, we get double bye. And it's like, you get to the finals. If you're just able to get to the finals with like any reasonable team, Josh Allen at those, I think we might do. I basically never, as you can see here, I have 2% Josh Allen. I've been taking a fairly sizable stand against the Bills, but I do think at the 106 we might try to set up a little Allen, Devontae. Oh, okay. So I have my only Allen teams do have Devontae and AJ Brown. So how about that? So what about? I can't get James Cook. I can't get Saquon Barkley. We can do Kyron Williams. I do have projected ownership on here. About 14% of teams. This is this 14 number that you see right there is projected ownership with that player. And so I do have already Devontae and AJ Brown. Let's try out a Kyron team. Like I said, I really don't like the Bills. I'm not gonna full fade the Bills, but I'm not going to do a lot of Josh Allen. I like getting the superstar pieces of some of the NFC teams to kick it off and then doubling back. If I want to add in Bills later, every non-Shakir, Kincaid, Cook guy is like totally free. You can add them in as some secondary stacks, but I like this as well. The double bye, of course, is going to be the Denver Broncos and one of San Francisco or Seattle in the NFC. So probably an unlikely Super Bowl there by all of our accounts. But again, by the sheer fact of having the bye, of course, if it's Seattle, I think people feel even less excited about this because the Broncos and the Seahawks don't exactly score a whole boatload of fantasy points. But you could draft in basically every draft, setting aside JSN, right? JSN isn't necessarily available at the end of the first round. But in almost every draft, you could build a Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl, and no one really does it, right? No one really does it. Now, the Seahawks might not get the bye, all that good stuff, but okay, let's see here. Let's do. All right, so we're gonna do Bills, and then with Eagles and Rams. So we got Kyron. We're obviously gonna toss on some crappy Rams. Mumfield, Xavier Smith, Terrence Ferguson probably, going to make an appearance on this team, but building out combinations of the Bills and the Eagles. I will say that the Bills-Eagles combination is kind of one of the more popular ones because the ADP just sort of aligns there for that Super Bowl matchup. But I think having some of that, still a sprinkle of that in the portfolio, and when I've had it, it has been with Jalen Hurts. So I don't hate this, though. This is not my standard start here. I see Bernie over here building out potential double bye if it's San Francisco. It obviously would not be double bye if San Francisco loses this weekend, but building out a little double bye of potentially double bye with Denver. I know he's taking a hard stand on Denver. My plan is to draft whatever tournament you won't be drafting during your stream. That way you attract the ball knowers. You guys definitely will be bringing in the ball knowing knowledge. But if you saw my regular season best ball teams, you don't have anything to worry about with me in terms of stealing away any good teams from you here. Love Stars in week 17 won $100,000. Let's get more. Shout out and huge congratulations. It has been so fun to see in the Discord, on social media, what have you, the amount of people that came in and shipped a whole bunch of money. So I'm gonna skip Dalton Kincaid. I do think I want to get Khalil Shakir, but let me see what's going on here. Okay, so Parkinson is gone. Let's Shakir it up. Maybe I could take Pearsall and give myself another shot on another. Let's do that. Shakir and Pearsall and build out Bills with Rams, 49ers, and Eagles. We've got 2 Eagles already, so we only need a couple more Bills, right? Including a running back. I'll need a running back. But with the Rams, I don't need a running back. So, Ty Johnson or Ray Davis are a must on this team. One of the two. Prefer Ty Johnson. I have Ty Johnson ranked decently high. Ooh. Ray Davis basically unranked. I probably need to move Ray Davis up a little bit, but it has been so awesome to see folks like Love Stars. I mean, congratulations. Like, there's just nothing better than the week 17 sweat, all the hard work over the summer coming to fruition. And look, if I'm not going to win, I want to see you guys win. Post away. We have a trophy case channel. You can share it in any channel in the Discord. The reception from all the folks, it's a wonderful community. They will applaud you, I promise. Thoughts on dogs? You meant Diggs, but I love dogs. Big dog guy. I got 2 beasts myself. Those are my thoughts are dogs are one of God's greatest creations, one of the greatest things on this planet. When you're feeling sad in week 17, things didn't go your way. You had those teams that would have had your Derrick Henry or Bijan teams got eliminated. You would have had a really nice sweat, right, in week 17 if they had just got there, and they didn't. The dogs will be there for you. They don't care that your best ball teams didn't go well. They just want to hang out with you. They just want to walk. They want a toy, whatever. Obviously, kidding. Thoughts on Diggs? I love Stephon Diggs in draft. No, I am not concerned about this. Pardon me. Legal issue. I completely understand being concerned about this. I really should have paid a little more attention to this. Okay. I don't want to take Ty Johnson yet. I don't want to take Dawson Knox yet, but I'm about to auto, so we're going to take Dawson Knox. This is why you need to pay attention. There is not really anybody here that is blowing me away. Trying to think of what I could do here. I could do the Bears as well. Let's add the Bears on here. Give ourselves more Super Bowl action. The old 4-2-2-2-2 build. But I'm not worried about Stephon Diggs. I've actually moved Stephon Diggs up. I think the Mac Hollins injury is a lot more impactful than people are sort of giving it credit in drafts. Now Diggs goes fairly early or whatever, but I find it funny that the Bills I understand the star power of Josh Allen and James Cook, but I do find it pretty funny that I really hate the display on the DraftKings website. I find it funny that Josh Allen and James Cook are both first round picks, and the New England Patriots, who what purpose is there? What reason is there that they go behind the Bills at all, other than Josh Allen's name? Drake May has played just about as well as Josh Allen has this year. I'm not saying he's as good as Josh Allen, but objectively, the Patriots are just as good, if not better, than every team in the AFC. They're certainly right there. And those two teams might play in the first round, actually, which would be a serious sweat for someone with big Patriots bags and not a lot of Bills. But clearly this team would be rooting for the Bills. Stephon Diggs is like an alpha wide receiver. No Mac Hollins. I like Kayshon Boutte. I like Kyle Williams. Whatever. Pop Douglas, right? Fine. But Mac Hollins was the guy really stealing targets away from Stephon Diggs, from whoever, right? Hunter Henry is obviously very nice as well. But Stephon Diggs should go higher. He just should. And I get the legal stuff. You have to forgive me if I don't think that the NFL is going to swiftly come in and do something about Stephon Diggs. He's trying to push this out. This is not me saying anything about what happened. Certainly I don't know, but I'm not worried about it. What team am I missing? Oh, Rams. One thing I really like about DraftKings is you can so easily filter down. Okay. I actually quite like Loveland over. Jesus, it is bleak for some of these teams. Okay. I need Ty Johnson, so let's make sure we lock up Ty Johnson. And now I think it's going to probably be Loveland. One thing about DJ Moore versus Loveland is probably a coin flip. DJ Moore is probably a small favorite to outscore him. I haven't taken Rome. I don't plan to, if I'm being honest, unless I get really backed into a corner. But what I do like about drafting a Loveland, right? Someone would say Loveland versus DJ Moore. Who do you like better? And I'd say, well, of course, it depends. The answer to every best ball question ever. It depends. But on DraftKings, on Underdog, it's certainly a coin flip. We can talk about how DJ Moore's not very good anymore, of course. But on DraftKings, the fact that there's a tight end spot, I actually sort of lean to the tight end. Not all the time, but both can hit the flex, right? The flex is running back, wide receiver, and tight end. But that tight end spot can be such a big differentiator, and it's probably going to be so low scoring that I'm leaning a little bit more towards the tight end. Tight ends have, been solid enough fantasy producers. We saw weeks during the regular season, right, where you're getting double tight ends, Pitts, McBride, and Schultz, and whatever. But in the playoffs, with the tight end thing being so important, that's a big reason why I like DraftKings and drafters. They force you to have to fill the tight end spot, which creates this strategy. I actually sort of default towards the tight end in that scenario. Yeah, let's see. Buffalo lost to Atlanta and Miami this year and should have lost to Cleveland as well. Interesting year. Yes. this is the craziest. This is this is like when some of the older running backs that we had been drafting in the first, round or 2 rounds of like regular fantasy football, like started to finally age out. Now, Derrick Henry, of course, has not aged out, and Christian McCaffrey has not aged out, but they're like the stragglers, right? Remember, we had Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara. Like we were drafting all those guys in the early rounds for years, and we had to have these conversations every single year about like, is Dalvin Cook going to do it again? Is Joe Mixon going to do it again? And now, oh man, you have to filter every time. Shit, I should have been paying attention. Okay, I got Bears and Eagles done. I need a Ram. Shoot, I need a Ram, except it needs to be a wide receiver. Mumfield. Kanata Mumfield. This is why you don't stream and draft. This is why you join streamers drafts, and a 49er, which can be anyone. Okay. Probably going to be Kendrick Bourne. Yeah. First Kendrick Bourne share of the draft season. Kendrick Bourne. So, as you see with this team, here's what we got. I'm constantly using this sidebar from the Draft Hacker, by the way, to show me you can see teams, you can see playoff odds, right? You can filter to the playoff odds to see. That's not what we wanted. Go to Buffalo, right? They're 100% to make the playoffs, 10% to make the Super Bowl. Here's all the odds, right, for the different matchups and all that kind of stuff. All these fun little deal-em-a-bobbers. But I just to map out my Super Bowls, I love to use this in the Draft Hacker. As you can see, Josh Allen, Ty Johnson fills the running back spot. Dawson Knox fills the tight end spot. One wide receiver spot is filled. We obviously need a flex. So with the Rams, it would be Kyron and Kanata Mumfield. With the Eagles, which is probably what we're rooting for given the draft capital, though we took Kyron, so that's a little bit tricky. The 49ers is going to be a little bit lower ownership one, of course, a little bit weaker players, but we have a live one, and same thing with the Bears. What I like about doing stuff like this is you could easily say, let's have a lot more guys in a let's pick a Super Bowl, which is something we might do here in this next draft. But you can also build out these different that give you life in multiple different permutations of a Super Bowl. You have to make some form of bet, right, on a team, and then the next team you'll make a different bet on a different team. But I like kind of building a bunch of different structures in these drafts. Any interest in Brandon Cooks? Not really, though. I did move him up. Where do I have it? Oops. 84th overall. So I think I have. Let's go to the Bills real quick. And you can find these rankings on spikeweek.com. We have a rankings hub right here that stores all of our rankings. You can download them from within this hub, right? And it has all the different sites. If I go to DraftKings, you can filter by position. You can see how different from ADP is, how different from ADP we are, and you can see the change log. Brandon Cooks is a guy I moved up, as you see here. I had him 108, and I moved him up to 84. I have them all sort of ranked next to each other. Josh, they meaning the Bills' crappy wide receivers. Not that Shakir is that great either, if we're being honest. But the Bills' crappy wide receivers, I have them all pretty much right next to each other, aside from Keon. What just happened? So they don't have Brandon Cooks as on the Bills? Is that right? Yeah, he shows us a free agent. So that's pretty funny. But I have Shavers, Palmer, and Brandon Cooks all right next to each other. I certainly understand that Brandon Cooks looked a lot better this week. I still lean to Shavers and to Palmer over Cooks, but if you have a stronger take that you like Cooks better, I think that's completely fine. Honestly, we're talking about whichever guy catches a long one. down the field. None of them are going to get a whole boatload of targets. I think Josh Palmer is the best player out of all of them. I actually think Tyrell Shavers has earned the most locked in role. And then Brandon Cooks is the one who's, sort of the veteran who's popped up in a room of wide receivers that they've just been desperate for like any form of playmaking. And maybe that helps propel him to more work. I don't know, but that's sort of how I'm thinking about it. The nice thing about the Bills, though, even though I don't love them, you can toss on Bills at the end. And so long as Josh Allen and James Cook don't blow up in the Super Bowl, you're probably okay, having a live Bills team with like Dawson Knox and Tyrell Shavers, right? Dawson Knox and Brandon Cooks can end up giving you an actual shot at $1 million, where some of these other teams, like I tossed Kendrick Bourne on there, like, is a Juwan, I guess if Juwan gets hurt, that would be okay. Let's do, I have an absolute truckload of Saquon, but I'm really trying to build a lot of Eagles, a lot of Patriots. I could get this Drake May number up a little bit. I've taken a fairly sizable stand on Saquon Barkley, which makes me outrageously uncomfortable. Like outrageously uncomfortable. So James Cook is still here. I could certainly do that. I would really need Hurts to come back to me. Because if we don't, right, then we have two, then I would have to use one of them as an advance rate piece, which is okay. But let's do the Patriots. Let's do some Patriots with some Eagles. See what we can do with Drake May and Saquon Barkley. Tebow's been mixing. I think that's totally reasonable. I don't have any strong. I don't know how anyone can have a like pound the table for Tyrell Shavers or versus Brandon Cooks versus Josh Palmer. It's the 3-man Spider-Man meme. Like whatever. There's gonna be a winner probably in the playoff. If the Bills make a run, right? Certainly if the Bills make the Super Bowl, that could decide which one of those guys does something. Could decide if the Bills were to make a run, which makes me sick to my stomach. But I don't know how anyone can say anything too strongly. Jane Mam says the Falcons are going to play spoiler and bounce the Bucks. They've already started to play spoiler, beating the Rams and taking the Bucks. What do you want to call it? Destiny into the Falcons' hands and of course the Panthers' hands. But the Bucks no longer control their own destiny, even if they beat the Panthers. If the Falcons beat the Saints, the Bucks will not make the playoffs. So it's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. Will Baltimore be the Buffalo Killers if they play in the first round? I think so. Maybe it's a good reminder. I've been not going crazy with the Ravens. People have asked like in the Discord about, what are you doing with the Ravens? Are you like just playing it as if the Ravens win? And I sort of am, but also the field really is. Like Derrick Henry going reasonably high. I have May. I'm going to skip Hurts. I'm going to take Diggs and see if we can't get Goddard here. I like to do that if possible. And Travion goes anyway. We'll see if Asar here in the at the turn, what he or she does. Goddard is a pretty, as you can see, I have a whole ton. Dallas Goedert, one of my highest owned players. It's that tight end thing. I'm making a big bet on the Eagles, which makes me extremely sick to my stomach. But look, it is what it is. They win. They win a lot of games. Their defense is outstanding. Jalen Carter is about to be back. Lane Johnson is about to be back for the offense. Like the Bills scored zero. Like the Bills like basically scored 0 points on the Eagles. It took them for basically the entire game to even move the ball. And that's a good Buffalo offense, relatively speaking. I'm placing a fairly sizable bet on the Eagles, and they're achievable. That's achievable in basically every single draft. Anyway, the thing about the Eagles is you better get them early, because once Dallas Goedert is off the board, there's essentially no Eagles worth drafting, which does make like sort of the strategy interesting. So I have a bunch of Saquon, a bunch of Goddard, a good amount of AJ Brown, a good amount of Devontae Smith. Whether I have plenty of Jalen Hurts, but you can just draft those guys and get quarterbacks from the AFC or whatever. the Eagles are like just an awesome secondary stack. They don't necessarily, they can be right. Goddard and Saquon could help get a Seahawks team through, right? Get a New England and a Seattle Super Bowl. Speaking of tight ends, let's get a little double tight end action. Hunter Henry. Now we should start looking though at our secondary stack. We could do Seattle. We could do Ken Walker. I don't have much Ken Walker. I prefer at cost. I much prefer Sharbs, but this does make for a Ken Walker team. I'm mostly fading Green Bay, as you can see here. Josh Jacobs, specifically Josh Jacobs, the late receivers. I'll do some of those guys, but let's do Seattle. We start May. May digs Hunter Henry from the New England side and Saquon Goddard. So we'll need another wide receiver to fill out that Super Bowl, obviously, from the Patriots, unless it's Jahan Dotson, which I do have non-zero amount of Jahan Dotson. Disgusting. And then, we'll be looking to Rashid Shaheed, AJ Barner, Cooper Kupp. You could also do both Ken Walker and Sharbs. It's not going to hurt anything. And then the world is sort of our oyster, right? We can draft some guys to help push this team through in the first round and or first couple of rounds. We can build out another NFC team on the other side. Like I said, world is your oyster. Let's go to rankings. Let me think about this now. Ramondre does make a lot of sense to give me that extra running back flexibility. Yeah, see, I have Ken Walker pretty close to ADP ranking-wise, but if you see here, Zach Charbonnet at 40 and his ADP is at 55. Yeah, I think let's do Ramondre because now if I want to add on another NFC team, Bears, Niners are really mostly off the board, right? But Packers, I don't have to worry about that running. I don't have to take Emmanuel Wilson or whatever to fill my running back spot in a Green Bay Super Bowl, but I could still write Dobbs, Wicks, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave. I could still build out a secondary stack by having Ramondre filling that running back spot. I've already filled the tight end spot. Now I'm just free to do whatever I want to do with that sort of secondary. Parker Washington went. I was thinking about Parker for a little one-off. Now I'm not going to do Sharbs though. I will do Burden. Yeah, let's do Burden. So now I just need, right, a Patriots wide receiver mandatory on this team. Someone from Seattle and someone from Chicago. What did I say that had to do with this? What did I miss? I don't know. I'm sitting here talking a lot, so I say things. I don't know what that would be in reference to. But let's see. Tim says, my current approach to the Bills in playoff best ball is taking Allen or Cook and then just trying to guess the NFC team that faces them. Just have no faith a team full of 6 Bills can advance thrice. I mostly agree with that. I like attaching some Bills at the very end for Super Bowl equity, right? That's the how do we not chop? How do we win, or how do we chop as few times as possible? Adding, I don't want to guess amongst those wide receivers, but I do want to have the outs to something that let's do. What I said, I need a bear, I said, and I need. So I don't have to have a bear. Let's do Shaheed first. Shaheed's kind of mandatory for Seattle. Obviously, it didn't have to be. I didn't have to draft Shaheed. I could just draft more, right? If I draft another Patriot wide receiver, which I'm going to do. Oh, there goes Booty. So that decision was made for us. Booty, Kyle Williams, and Rashid Shaheed were all there as sort of options. And technically now, right, I have a Super Bowl with all these teams. It would be 5 Patriots and just Luther Burden, which I don't totally love. I'm also light on wide receivers with just 4, one of which might be in a bye. Rashid Shaheed. So we only have 3 wide receivers. So I'll probably look to a wide receiver here. It, of course, can be someone who can play in one of my Super Bowls, but it also doesn't have to be. We have the flexibility here to draft someone that can just be an advanced rate piece. This also could be a Rome team. Like I don't know what's up with Rome's foot. Let's see if there's any coach speak on it, shall we? Shout out to Coach Speak Index. Let's go to the Chicago Bears and just see if there's any Rome updates on Luther Burden. Caleb Johnson, Loveland. Rome is right on track where we have him slotted. We'll kind of go through the course of the week and see what his available. Okay, let's do Rome then. Let's do Rome. Now, again, we got a little bit of a freebie here. I don't hate this doing Barner. Let's do AJ Barner. I just want to double check some ADP here. Barner makes sense. Monangai doesn't make so much sense positionally. I could do a Dobbs and give myself those outs, but let's make a bigger bet on Seattle. AJ Barner. Talk about defaulting to the tight end. I'm still not awesome at wide receiver, but Diggs, Burden, Kyle Williams. Hopefully Rome comes back. If that's not enough with really good tight ends, Saquon Barkley, Ramondre, then, it was just never going to happen. I need Drake May to have a good passing game to advance this team anyway. So we bet on the wide receivers. All good. Are you jumping in any more drafts this morning? Yeah, for the next approximately 30 minutes, I'm going to be continuing to draft here on DraftKings.com on this very here show. I'm going to be only doing in the Millie, as I mentioned. If you've joined just in the last 30 minutes before the beginning, I absolutely despise how it does this sometimes on DraftKings. It says 0 out of 6, but I've finished the $3.20 max. I have finished the 2 $5 5 maxes, and 30 into the Millie. I did some underdog stuff. I did some drafter stuff, not a bunch. I'm actually going to be focusing mostly on DraftKings. I am going to do some drafters. I'm going to decide if we're going to stream some of those on Friday or Saturday or what. I haven't figured out the exact schedule for playoff best ball stuff. But we got plenty more coming. And yes, we're going to be drafting more today. Got the 102. M11 says, just wanted to say thanks. Always listen to your content and appreciate insights and analysis. Won the pointer this year and 10th in the Chow Chow. Had your tool last year. Eddie, congratulations. Amazing, dude. Won a tournament and got 10th in another tournament. What a sick year, man. Was it Bijan or Derrick Henry? I just assume every good team had Bijan or Derrick Henry. I guess it was technically possible to score a lot without them, but it seems unlikely. Was it Bijan or Derrick Henry? We had a good conversation last night about I'm working on a sort of a post-mortem, an analysis of my season. I don't think I played particularly well this year. I think I did some things that were like really good, and I think I did some things that were just not. I didn't play them appropriately. I don't want to spoil it all. I actually don't regret Derrick Henry that much, but Bijan Robinson, I did not play well. We talked about that last night, and I'm working on some video content and written content. As like I said, sort of a breaking down all the facets of how I played this year, from player takes to structures to site by site to contest selection to all that different stuff, right? And sort of giving myself grades, being honest about how I played. All that is going to come out. Is Rome on the Devontae Adams trajectory, or is he just Corey Davis? Well, he's definitely not on the Devontae Adams trajectory, because Devontae was terrible for like 3 seasons, and Rome was not. Rome's been decent this year. I think Rome is a totally solid to I don't know what the right verbiage, what word I would use to describe Rome, but I feel good about Rome. Puka goes. Let's see. How about a JSN team, huh? Let's try a JSN team. I don't do much JSN, but let's try a little Seattle stuff. But Rome, I think Rome is going to be a good wide receiver to have on a good offense. I don't think you want to like build the plane out of him. I think we've seen already what the upside of building your passing game around Luther Burden being quite a bit higher. I think how I would think about this is super lazy comp, right? This is every white slot receiver is Wes Welker type analysis, but I also think it's somewhat relevant because Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. If I had to think about it like player comp to player comp within what the Lions offense was to what this Bears offense is, I think Luther Burden has the potential to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think Rome has the potential to be Jameson Williams. They're all very different stylistically. I'm not saying they play the game the same way. I just think like sort of a pecking order of an offense. I think Luther Burden has that level of upside. I'm not sure. I mean, we should never say anyone's going to become Amon-Ra. He's one of the best wide receivers in football. That would be an incredible outcome for Luther Burden. But I think that's in his range. And I think Rome as like a really good number 2 is in his range. And I think if the Bears had their druthers, they would love to upgrade DJ Moore and get this like absolute monster offensive attack with Loveland, right in the Loveland being the Sam Laporta or whatever in that passing attack. Yeah, if you're not, RGT says it's very important to acknowledge your fails, and I mean I could not agree more. If you're not honestly assessing where you screwed up, and the interesting part about it, let's make a couple pictures. Who did I take? JSN. Okay, let's do Seattle. My 2 favorite teams in the NFC. Let's just get this out of the way. Are New England and Jacksonville, followed by Denver. I know that is so. No. I got to get this Diggs number up. I am actively drafting Travis Etienne because, like I said, the Jacksonville love him filling a running back position. All that stuff is really valuable. However, I really got to get this Stephon Diggs number up. And I mean, showing up to the Super Bowl with JSN May Diggs feels pretty good. But if you're not honestly assessing how you played, but I think the difficult part, it's a struggle for every person to like figure out, okay, so let's just say something fails. Was it truly a process error? Like, is that truly something you should change? Because even understanding if you played well in this game, you could win one of these tournaments and have played really you could win life-changing money and not really have played that well. You could have played great. You could get wiped the fuck out in best ball and played awesome, right? Drafted awesome teams, drafted great structures, did whatever, capitalize on player news, had good player takes, and you get wiped out. So it's not just like how much money did you win or lose. It's also not just like you liked this player and he failed. There's so much that goes into it that it can be difficult to even self-diagnose. And then you'll also, right, like I faded Derrick Henry. I'll just give this perfect example. Like I said, I essentially faded Derrick Henry. You know, I did some different things in Superflex and some different tournaments. But I essentially faded Derrick Henry, and then he scores 50 fantasy points in the finals. And someone would say, weren't you wrong? Don't you regret that? You know, all that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Hunter Henry for sure. Do I do Ken Walker or do I do something with one of these other teams? Juwan, right? I can get Juwan and Ricky. I don't hate that idea, trying to think about the NFC stuff. So you just get locked out of Eagles and Rams if you. Let's do Juwan. I'm obviously going to have a guaranteed bye if I do San Francisco and Seattle on the same team. But like the Derrick Henry thing, right, is like, I don't really regret it. I think, could I have played it better? Always. Could you have played something better? Always. I don't really, because all of the reasons for not drafting much Derrick Henry, I think were reasonable, solid, plausible. But everything has, even like good process moves or things that you think are good process moves, nothing is 100 to 0. There and there's good process moves that just like, if Derrick Henry does that in week 12, no one cares. No one would be sitting here saying Derrick Henry slam dunk, right? Someone might also say the same about Luther Burden, but then we would say, well, it's a rookie. That's part of what's baked into it. So there's all this nuance that goes into even assessing your own play, but that's why I think it's super important. Like, actually decide, like, would you do this again? Do you think that this was fine and just like, it didn't work out? You can make the greatest, you build some statistical model, right? You build the greatest prop model of all time. You get your money in good. You get your money on over 50 rushing yards for some running back. Everything plays out in your favor. His backup goes down. They are up by 20 points. So he's going to get 1 million carries and it still doesn't hit. Would you make that bet again? Yeah. So what that it lost, right? And like figuring out like, yep, I would do that again. It was still a good bet. It just didn't work. Versus that was bad. That was a bad bet. You made a poor decision. Like, that's the game, but it's really hard. It's very difficult. Okay. I need to do Ken Walker. If Ramondre is gone, that sucks. That kills my San Francisco thing unless I do Brian freaking Robinson. I'm still gonna do the San Francisco secondary because it can be a good, whether like, so let's say in this instance Seattle wins this weekend, San Francisco does not get to buy. Seattle gets to buy. These guys are still good to have on that, or vice versa, right? Seattle loses, San Francisco gets to buy. I've got these 2 wide receivers. Hopefully they can, like, it's fine to have them, but I'm probably not going to have a New England San Francisco Super Bowl team that like makes a lot of sense. Certainly if someone shows up at CMC, I'm going to attempt to take Brian Robinson on this team to make sure I get that Super Bowl, a full Super Bowl team. Crazy shit can happen. Brian Robinson could fall into the end zone, right? CMC gets a concussion, whatever. But the team is probably not in great shape for the Super Bowl. Amen, Charles. Only thing I regret in 2025 best ball is not using the draft hacker. It's such a cheat code, and I don't mean that like it's going to help you win because I didn't win this year. But right, instead of building a tool that tells you what to do, says here's what Erik says that you should do. We built a tool that said, what do you want to do? Right? I don't have all the answers. Who does? No, nobody has all the answers. So how do we like build something that still allows you to achieve your goals? You can listen to me and listen to my advice, right? And all that kind of stuff. But let's get a little Parker one off because I'm gonna keep building San Francisco, Seattle stuff. So I'm gonna have a decent chunk of bye week players. Zay goes, okay. If I have Ken Walker, I probably don't want Sharbs, though. As I sit here, I'm realizing I don't have a running back for. I need Woody. I need Woody for the. See, I wanted Ramondre to kind of fill that running back spot in the first round. But if I'm saying Seattle might get the bye on this team, obviously I don't have another running back. Let's get a little queue going here. Brian Robinson. Booty goes, so I want Kyle Williams, B-Rob, Shaheed. We'll put Cup in there. We also only have one tight end, right? Is Barner gone? No, he's not. I would be cool with Barner. Okay. All right. Now we got a queue. Process evals or so. I agree. Flyfish. Eddie had almost had a BBM final team as well. Oh, God. The Alec Pierce game. Brutal. Yeah. We're going to just keep, right, every year. Zeus, only positive to the big dog scoring 40 in week 17 is we get to fade him in round 2 next year. I'm with you. I'm all riled up to fade Derrick Henry again and get put in a fucking coffin. But look, like I said, if you think it's a good bet, it's a good bet. And if you think that's wrong, you're not wrong. But I have what I think are very strong reasons to do so. You have your strong reasons. That's the beauty of this game. There is not so much right and wrong. There's a lot of shades of gray. Of course, thank you, and thank you for sharing your teams. We need some fun, positive teams on this wonderful New Year's Eve. M. Stockton says targeting at least one Chicago Bear on every team next year feels optimal. I want Bear stacks galore. I also want Bear stacks galore. Okay, hold on. I think I said I need Kyle Williams for sure on this team, right? Yeah. Okay, it needs Kyle Williams. We're going to add a Seahawk, and then we're going to add B-Rob. And if one of you dickheads, man, Sharbs is still here. Is Sharbs plus Ken Walker? Like, I think I take Sharbs. I know it's double running back from the same team, but why can't they? They could like ping pong games in the the real life playoffs, also the best ball playoffs. The best ball playoffs? No. In playoff best ball, they could the ping pong some weeks. They could both score touchdowns in the same game. I think that they project better than Rashid Shaheed does, even though I like Shaheed. I have more. Shaheed, that's a little bit of a wide receiver thing, and he goes after those guys. But that's kind of fun. If Seattle doesn't get the bye, I'm not reliant upon Woody Marks. And frankly, I'm not reliant upon Ken Walker. Charbonnet can score a touchdown probably easier as the goal line back than Walker can. Yeah, but I'm very in on the Bears next year, just as you are. But I'm quite terrified about what the price is going to look like, specifically from a boy, Luther Burden. He just had to go so crazy in week 17 that we're not going to get. I think we're going to be staring down the barrel at like 3-4 turn Luther Burden. How would you assess what you just said without looking at monetary results? Says Dial. If I'm being honest, I'm working on that. Okay. So I said I need B-Rob, right? Yeah. This has to have B-Rob. Oh man. Hunter Henry, Drake May, Hunter Henry touchdowns every step along the way for this team. So Drake May, Stephon Diggs, Kyle Williams, Hunter Henry stacks from New England. Obviously, this team needs New England to make it, and it will be New England against either Seattle or San Francisco in the Super Bowl with Walker, Sharbs, and JSN. That's pretty fun to get the potential 1 seed. They're 3 best players. And the 49er side is not so great, but it's technically alive. If that's a very low, right? If New England, San Francisco is like a low advance rate thing, it's not over, right? It's not a guarantee that a bunch of CMC teams make the final. You could be one of the very rare teams to be able to fill out a full roster. So it's not dead. It's not great, but it's not dead. And then a couple of one-offs to help us get through Parker Washington and Woody Marks. I like this team. Let's do one more. And then I got to go get ready we're going downtown for the SLU game today. Gonna watch some football, gonna get a couple of drinks and some lunch, and then watch some basketball, and then get back in time for Ohio State to beat the living shit out of Miami later tonight. But no, I'm working on this. I think it's very, very difficult. And the hard part with assessing all that stuff we were just talking about is, and this is what I'm trying to do, is it's so case by case. Player takes, like specifically like player takes, and even like macro level takes about structure and all that different kind of stuff. Like I don't think zero running back was bad this year. I think it's, and I actually didn't do nearly as much zero running back as I have like ever. Basically, this is the least amount of zero running back I've drafted this year. And I faded some of the wrong running backs, and some of the wide receivers I targeted didn't go well. But I think that's, basically what I'm gonna say is it's like a line by line thing. It's not something you can roll up, right? If you're in the corporate world, this is a detailed line by line spreadsheet that you actually have to go through every line in the spreadsheet. You can't roll this one up into a PowerPoint and give a pretty chart that assesses your play. I think you have to kind of go break it down into each little section. Right here, here's your highest owned players. Here's how you paired players together. Here's your highest owned stacks. Here's your structures. Here's your contest selection, right? Here's your bankroll, like how did you deploy your bankroll? Did you go much more onto one site versus another site? How did you play cumulative versus, I'm still really bad at that. How did you attack risers and fallers? How did you attack news, right? Keon Coleman getting hyped to the moon, was that something that you bought into, right? And that can't necessarily be something that is even in the results or even in the exposures, right? Did you stay on the Roshan Johnson thing when they were telling you all along the Kyle Manung guy was the guy? Did you draft a backup running back like Will Shipley that I did? Was he even wrong? Should you have drafted less of him? Like, it's kind of getting into every little nook and cranny and breaking each one of those down, and then then you can sort of roll it up from there, right? With like okay, I did 20 things I think pretty solid. I did 25 things that I don't think that I played them very well, and you can kind of put it all together that way. But I don't think there's any way to go about it other than like really getting down into the nitty gritty. It's so interesting because I don't really think zero RB has been bad. I think zero RB has been quite good. It's just like very specific. We did an Allen team, right? We did a Saquon team and a JSN team, right? So this is team 4. Should we do a Rams deal-em-a-bobber? Let's try a Rams. Let's try a Rams. Stafford. We'll see if Devontae makes it back. We probably should have taken Devontae first. But he falls a lot, especially if you have Stafford. Yeah. We do love Harold Fannin. Generational wealth on Brock Bowers. Yeah, that is true. Bears last year. I don't think DJ Moore is going to do the Keenan. All right, there goes AJ Brown. All right, let's do Devontae. Brent says, do you think only taking 3 teams is too thin? Feel like if one does, it's going to be hard to advance. No, taking 3 teams is not too thin. There's just this constant push-pull in playoff best ball drafts of like optimizing, right? Optimizing for the final, optimizing as many outs as you can have to have, right? So like I did the team earlier that has like 4 different Super Bowls that I would technically have a live team, but you have weaker live teams. Like, how valuable is it having more outs to Super Bowl matchups versus like getting all the production from 3 teams, and also then you have 2 Super Bowl matchups, right? That you can have. There's no real right or wrong answer, but I would say generally speaking, 3 teams is definitely not too thin, but you are just inherently taking on risk the more you consolidate your chips, right? From that advance. Like it's just harder to advance round by round by round that way. Now, it could play out in a certain way where it was easier to advance that way, like the Jaguars just score a bunch of points every single round of the playoffs, but that's pretty unlikely. Let's do Rams. What I would really like to do here is Rams with both New England and Denver, because I don't have Kyren Williams. I'm really trying not to go crazy on Blake Corum. The Blake Corum price has gotten wild, and I drafted Stafford plus Devontae. I would really like it to be more of a passing situation for the Rams, really all throughout the playoffs, but of course in a potential Super Bowl. So we're set for, maybe we'll put, Brent, your question a little bit to the test. I don't think I'll end up with only 3 teams because the Broncos are going to have the bye. So we'll see how we play that out, but we'll see what this looks like. Yeah, it's weird. I thought I got my money in as got my money in well, as they say. Samson could have smashed week 17. Samson, like, I don't regret Dylan Sampson in the least. Kind of a crazy run out with Quinton Judkins. Samson had multiple good games that were really useful from a late round running back. He's a rookie who just naturally has, now he didn't turn out to be all that good. He's fine. He didn't turn out to be all that good, but I don't, oh, nice. Sutton. Sick. Let's just get a little cue. I could. Yeah, Hunter Henry gone. I think I do want Parkinson on this team if we can get him to come back. Something I have been doing though is not necessarily forcing Colby Parkinson, because I can get a Terrence Ferguson or a Davis Allen or a Tyler Higbee later. I much prefer Colby Parkinson, but I think Terrence Ferguson could be an interesting, like, oh, he's blooming late as well. Rookie 2nd round pick. So let's do Corum, actually. He says after saying Corum is overpriced, but it gives me paths to adding on a Jacksonville, right? If I take Corum, skip Parkinson, double back for Ferguson or Allen or Higbee at the end, I still get that tight end that I want for these Super Bowl matchups. And I don't, like, specifically New England, because Hunter Henry is gone. I don't really, technically I could do Austin Hooper, right? I prefer Ferguson to Austin Hooper. It doesn't, now I'm not forced into Evan Ingram, though I can take Evan Ingram if I would like. But if I want to take damn it, Parker Washington goes. If I want to take another Houston, Chargers, whatever, I'm not forced into their tight end, I'm not forced into their crappy running back to try to build out that Super Bowl, right? Taking Kamani Vidal. Derrick Henry's already gone. You can't even take Derrick Henry. Woody's already gone. I have Harvey and Sutton. Let's do BTJ since Parker's gone. I'm really triggered about really triggered about everybody getting hip to Parker Washington. I've had him ranked ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. and now he freaking we used to be able to get Parker Washington in like round 11. Now he's going in round 7. It's so annoying. This is funny. Tipo says, assessing whether or not to play DraftKings. I'm assessing whether or not to play Underdog. I have much more success on DraftKings. I like the contests better, et cetera, et cetera. And now I do not have a tight end. So this is part of why I wanted Parker, but nonetheless, Parker, Brian Thomas Jr., giving me Brenton Strange. So now I already have this Rams Jags Super Bowl. Certainly not the stone cold nuts. Certainly not the stone cold nuts of a Super Bowl, but it's not bad. Can't really get the Rams stuff that you want. Certainly not anymore. And now we need one of those Rams. So we need a Rams tight end, right? Let's cue it up again. We put Terrence Ferguson in there. We need Patriots wide receivers. And then we have a little bit of, so that's 2 picks, right? Then we have a couple of freebies. We can add on to those Super Bowls. We can take some advancement one-offs. I think somebody said in the chat, like the Rams are, it's not a lock, but they're a good, let's see here. The Rams are 64% for the 6 seed, right? And 36% for the 5 seed. Same, the Eagles have a coin flip as well, 3-6. So the most 64% of the time, those 2 teams play each other. Okay, hold on. I need to do Kyle Williams. I didn't really. I mean, I knew. PJ says, "Love to see the Darius Miles jersey in the background." I knew that it would be like a wait. Is that Darius Miles, or people just asking who the hell is that a jersey of in the background? It's a very obscure player, but I didn't quite know that it would get the folks that pop in are like, "What? This dude has a Darius Miles jersey in his background?" Yeah, it's a long story. I'll tell it another day because we're about to wrap up here. But thank you. Love our boy D Miles. All right. See, this is if I do the Ferguson thing, I could technically do. Well, Jaden Higgins is on 100% of my. What is this? 100% of my Stafford Travion teams have Jaden Higgins. Yeah, but let's do it. I need some wide receiver juice, I think. I need some wide receiver juice. And frankly, the Texans are kind of interesting / fun to bolt on to teams. You can do like Higgins, Knoll, Christian Kirk, if you like Christian Kirk. And you still, you're not losing a lot. Like Woody is not that big of a difference maker. You're just missing Nico Collins if Nico just isn't awesome, right? Or it's impossible to get to the finals. If the Texans make a run, having Higgins and Knoll, I think is totally fine and totally live in the Super Bowl. Texans just don't score that many fantasy points, and Nico's not like some lock to put up a huge game. We just saw what happened. Higgins and Knoll can outscore Nico Collins in a game. Not likely. That's amazing. I've met the only other massive Darius Miles fan in the world, PJ. That is so funny. It's PJ's favorite form of fantasy football. It's so fun. I absolutely love the playoff best ball stuff. Brent says I should have pushed Hurts to the 3rd. Probably a dead team. You're not dead. Everybody's so goddamn dramatic all the time about their teams. Don't be dramatic. Let's just get Ferguson now. So we have our Stafford Quorum, Devontae Ferguson with Travion and Kyle Williams, with RJ Harvey and Cortland Sutton, with Brian Thomas Jr. and Brenton Strange, with Jaden Higgins and dun dun dun. Let's just get him in the queue. Get him in the queue. You can see where I have Knoll ranked a little bit ahead of Christian Kirk. The Christian Kirk people will assuredly say this is like having Amari and Hampton ranked ahead of Derrick Henry. Way to go, dumbass. You like your rookies too much. But I would much rather like to bet on the really, really talented young player who's popping a little bit down the stretch. So we're going to take Jalen Knoll, give ourselves those 4 different Super Bowls. And frankly, right, I'm going to need Stafford to do some stuff against the Eagles, but this, even with Harvey Sutton, right, this is a totally fine advance rate team. Travion Henderson and or Blake Corum in that first round. We recovered a little bit at wide receiver. Devontae, Brian Thomas Jr., Kyle Williams, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll with Brenton Strange and Terrence Ferguson. It's a dog, I think, to advance to CMC teams and all that kind of stuff, but I feel totally fine about this team from an advance rate perspective. Just quickly before we get out of here, percentage of 1 QB builds from Charles, a lot, unless I'm drafting the bot. Next week it might change a little bit. I mostly draft 1 quarterback teams. I understand why someone would not draft 1 quarterback teams. Like, I totally get it, right? Quarterbacks have the best potential to add the most raw amount of points, right? If you get an 8-pointer from Stafford and a 25-pointer from somebody else, that can be the difference. You're giving up a flex spot. Now, if you draft bye-week players, you're giving up most of your roster spots to guys who will not hit your lineup. It's certainly in round 1, but in multiple rounds. Right now, you lose guys along the way, and you have multiple quarterbacks. There's not a right or wrong answer. I'm going to have 2 quarterback teams. I lean more towards 1 quarterback teams, but I also am drafting mostly, right, Stafford, Hurts, May, Lawrence, Purdy, right? Now Purdy's got the bye week stuff, but let's just say they don't get the bye, right? If you're drafting like the really good fantasy quarterback, the better fantasy quarterback, Josh Allen, right? Like, I don't see the need for another quarterback on those teams, but there's going, you draft Bo Nix, you need another quarterback. If you end up with Purdy or Darnold and they get the bye, you need another quarterback. And there's times there's also times where you straight up want 2 quarterbacks because it gives you, right? I have drafted like Drake May, Trevor Lawrence teams with like a couple of Eagles with like Saquon and AJ Brown or Saquon and Devontae Smith or whatever, right? And then, or I've drafted those with Saquon and Kyron Williams. Give me those guys as like, I know I'm getting a Rams running back and an Eagles running back, and then I add on you add on Colby Parkinson and Dallas Goedert, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to stack Drake May and Trevor Lawrence on this team, both, right? Or Justin Herbert or CJ Stroud or whatever. And it gives you 4 different Super Bowls, but in a different way than what I didn't make a big bet on, right? I have Houston and New England. Either one of those make the Super Bowl, we're golden, right? And they can play either Philly or the Rams, right? Or something like, or San Francisco or whatever. And like, there's different ways to build these teams, right? Is ultimately what I'm getting at. Not even all 2 quarterback teams are made the same. It's not always about the bye weeks. It's not always about this or that or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways to build your playoff best ball teams, and we're going to draft a lot of them, right? Go enjoy New Year's Eve. Go enjoy New Year's Day. We're going to be back. I think the plan is I'm going to be back on Friday morning to draft some more teams. We're going to do DraftKings. We're going to do drafters. We'll look at the FFPC contest. We'll do some more underdog stuff as well. We got lots of drafting to do. We got week 8 to get through, and then we'll know the bracket. And next week, some of the conversations will change a little bit. We'll dive into my portfolio on Friday. We'll draft some more teams, and we'll get ready for week 18. Congratulations to all you guys who won all the monies in week 17. If you guys could hit the thumbs up and subscribe and all that fun stuff before you get out of here, it'd be much appreciated. And playoffs 25 gets you 40% off Spike Week Annual today, last day for that. I'll see you guys on Friday. Have a good New Year's. Cheers. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? If you turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.